President of the Business Center at Goa, Mr. Nitin Kakurkar, to please take over the mic and introduce the guest. We have a very, very important memorial lecture which will be addressed by our great Chandrabandhu Prasad. Mr. Kakurkar, please.
When Ms. Amita Kanekar asked me if I would introduce Mr. Chandrabandhu Prasad to today's session, I was only too happy to accept the invitation. For Mr. Prasad is a great man, and it is an honor not only to introduce him, but to have him here at the International Center. Chandrabandhu Prasad, born in 1960, is widely regarded as the most important Dalit thinker and political commentator in India today, and a leading advocate for India's 200 million Dalits, comprising 16% of India's population. A graduate of the prestigious Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi, Chandrabandhu Prasad has done an MPhil and an MA. Mr. Prasad was the first Dalit to write regularly in a national circulating newspaper, The Times of India, gaining national attention and readership. His weekly Dalit diary has been a regular feature of the Delhi-based English language newspaper, The Pioneer, since 1999, and is routinely translated into numerous other major Indian languages. Writer of many books, his latest book, launched in July 2014, is Defying the Odds, The Rise of Dalit Entrepreneurs, published by Random House, one of the largest publishing houses in the world. Mr. Prasad has two strong beliefs. The first strong belief is capitalism. One-time Maoist, Mr. Prasad is today a champion of capitalism. Mr. Prasad firmly believes that the embrace of capitalism will emancipate the Dalits, and has assumed the role of key advisor to the Dalit Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Mr. Prasad's second strong belief is that adoption of English language by the Dalits will liberate the Dalits. Mr. Prasad regards English as a Dalit goddess. Described by the reputed New York Times as a professional provocateur, we have something to look forward to this session. Ladies and gentlemen, we have great pleasure in bringing to you the one and only Mr. Chandrabandhu Prasad.
Thank you so much, sir. I am very thankful. I get invited to Lal Bahadur Shastri of Administration, that is called IS Academy, Mussoorie, as guest faculty. A year back, I was addressing IS officers who were 20 years in service, and there was a debate on scheduled caste certificates, how a person is certified as scheduled caste. So the IS officer was a collector somewhere, and he was debating an issue of a forced scheduled caste certificate. Finally, the IS officer asked the candidate, which part of the village you live in? Are you located in the center of the village or at the outskirts? If on outskirts, which side? South, west, east or north? Then the person said he is located in the center of the village. He said that, then the IS officer said that you are not scheduled caste. You are scheduled caste, you will be outside the village, most likely southern side of the village. So Dalits are not part of the mainstream. In Delhi, I asked a very good friend of mine to say honestly his critique of the intellectuals. He said, when I repeated my question, he said that intellectuals are predictable. We know what a Dalit intellectual is going to speak. The TV anchor knows what a Dalit participant is going to speak. An audience, participants know what a Dalit intellectual is going to speak. Few months back, India had a glorious moment when one of its spacecraft reached Mars, and Time Magazine, I suppose, has described one of the greatest scientific achievement of the past year. At the same time, one news emerged from Gujarat where a Dalit girl was molested by upper caste youth. The news was it was for about 7 to 8 days the news remained in the media. But in the same week, Dalits in Gujarat and elsewhere were celebrating because the spacecraft on Mangalyaan, from its manufacturing to launch, requires a series of dry compressors. Those dry compressors were manufactured and supplied by a Dalit entrepreneur from Ahmedabad. In the mainstream media, this never became a news, while the molestation case became a news. The question of mainstreaming Dalits has not as yet emerged into a question. And talking of mainstream, let me say that the Indian society gives very little space about Dalit's contribution to the nation. When you read about Baba Saheb Dr. Ambedkar, even though he was the chief draftsman of the constitution, he is referred to as leader of the Dalit depressed classes, as a messiah of social justice. He is never referred as an architect of India. So my job here is, throughout his lifetime, Baba Saheb Ambedkar wanted to mainstream Dalits in a more intellectual fashion, in a more philosophical way. You want all the caste identities to dissolve into something one, similar. So that was his mission. My mission is to somehow put Ambedkar in the mainstream. What kind of India we want today? Do we want a capitalistic India? Do we want India an agrarian? Do we want Indian society to turn into European ones? Do we want Harvards and Oxfords, California and University of Pennsylvania to be in India also? So what kind of nation we are going to build? There is Gandhian notion of rural India. There is a Ram Rajya notion of India, and there is a socialistic India. But what kind of India Ambedkar wanted? In 1951-52, when India went for its first Lok Sabha elections, Ambedkar wrote his manifesto that if his scheduled caste federation came to power, be his program for India. Remember, by World War II and more certainly by 1949 when the Communist Party, Communist Revolution took place in China, half of the world was already red. Pandit Nehru in his discovery of India praises Marxism so much. He said Karl Marx has given a new path for the humanity. The societies that were trying to emancipate from colonial masters, the social movements that were trying to emancipate from their masters, all had one in common: opposing capitalism, opposing imperialism, because they were fighting imperialism, and opposing America. At that point of time, in 1951, Ambedkar wrote his manifesto, and it is my burden to carry the book itself, because people say, well, I have not seen this, Mr. Prasad. Where has he written? In his manifesto, Ambedkar's works, volume 17, part 1, page 392, he says, agriculture must be mechanized. Agriculture in India can never become prosperous so long as the method of cultivation remains primitive. To make mechanized farming possible, cultivation on small holdings must be replaced by large farms. Now, tell us, completely mechanized farming and farming on large scale farms as against small holdings. This kind of farming, is it part of socialism? Is it part of agrarianism? Is it part of Gandhianism? Is it part of Ramarajya? More certainly it is part of a capitalistic production system. Further, now we should read this slide in today's context. To increase the yield, there must be provision for adequate manuring and for supply of healthy seeds. Today it would mean hybrid seed and chemical fertilizers. As a leader of this country, he says population explosion will be a big problem for India. He said in 51, we must devise ways to control this population. Again, coming to the kind of political system you would argue for India, he says for the purpose of increasing production, the Scheduled Caste Federation will not be bound by any dogma or any pattern of production. That means, so far, Ambedkar is not tied by any ideology, be it communism, be it capitalism, be it socialism, be it Gandhism, be it Ramarajya. He says, looking at the intense poverty of the people of this country, no other consideration except that of greater production and still greater production can be the primary and paramount condition. In this manifesto, he does not talk about the risk, he does not talk about sustainability, he doesn't talk about scheduled caste, he doesn't talk about scheduled tribes. He is imagining a new India. Further, as you know, after World War II, after the Chinese Revolution had taken place, the ruler of mainland China, Chiang Kai-shek, fled to Taiwan. That got protected from the US. China was member of the Permanent Security Council. Because US were protecting, US, Britain, France were protecting West Germany, Chiang Kai-shek, they said Taiwan is the real China. It is the mainland China, and hence Taiwan should be should be retained as member of the permanent Security Council. Government of India, along with the Soviet Union, took a strong exception to it, and Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru took upon himself to fight the case of China. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was just, he was in favor of justice because China means mainland China. Ambedkar said in this manifesto, India will fight the case of India to be member of the Security Council. Why should India fight the case of communist China and invite anchors from America? India should support India should join the American camp because India will get capital and technology to develop this country, this nation. Earlier, in 1946, when he wrote a parallel to the Constitution, when he thought that he won't be taken to the Constituent Assembly, he said India should be renamed as United States of India. So that is what Ambedkar was thinking of India. When I say in debates elsewhere and in the great debate in television that Ambedkar was born in 21st century India. Whatever we are doing today, how to get project in the US today. Today, farmers who are doing farming on large scale through machines, they are called progressive farmers. Had India taken this path right after independence, India would have been something else. India's per hectare yield of wheat is the same as the per hectare yield of wheat in Britain in 1800. Now India is many times ahead than India, and India is called Krishi Pradhan Desh. So how can you have a modern industry and a backward primitive farm sector? So this notion of India, as I am reproducing before you, has never been said by any leader or philosopher or thinker or economist. That is, Ambedkar's writings came, I have 5 minutes. When the government of Maharashtra decided to publish Ambedkar's works, they made an editorial team, and the great team did a wonderful job, but there was a problem. The editorial team that collected Ambedkar's works focused on those writings which directly dealt with the issues of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, basically scheduled caste, that directly dealt with justice. So, in the larger public imagery, Ambedkar was a leader of untouchables. This is the great harm that editorial committee did. Since literature available by that time, Ambedkar and his writings and his views related only to injustice, justice, movement, fighting, equality, etc., etc. His contribution for India's nation building was never highlighted by Dalits. Somehow, this manifesto which I am talking about and some more writings were there, but most Dalit writers, I think 20 years back, there was hardly any Dalit writer writing in English. So they were not good at English. what about mainstream academia, professors, thought leaders, economists? Why should only I figure out this manifesto where it talks of Indian farming completely mechanized? Why should I am not a professor of economics, I am not an academic. What has been mainstream academics doing and not writing this aspect of Ambedkar's philosophy? So I'm not the one to complain all the time, but in the realm of philosophy, ideas, India, modern India, future of India, India surpassing US by 2020, becoming a superpower. How can you have all that without making India's farm sector as capitalistic as manufacturing? And as we were debating in the morning, Dalits feel more secure in cities than in urban India. Dalits succeed in urban India, they do not succeed in rural India. In urban India also, people figure out Dalits caste. But caste as an institution fails to prevail over Dalits. There is no way that somebody would say, Mr. Prasad, I know you are a Dalit, I have seen your photograph, or I have seen you somewhere in media, you can't eat in this restaurant. So caste loses its power in the urban India because the institution of caste was evolved in a rural setting. It cannot have the same power in urban India, in capitalistic society. It will become like a monkey in Times Square. So, my submission before you is that Dalits' contribution to the mainstream India gets very rarely recognized. As a result, Dalits are seen as a mass of people who cannot move unless somebody lifted individually one by one. This also enriches the Dalit stereotype that these are the guys, they are oppressed and suppressed for centuries and they need help. So how can Dalits be seen as equal human beings if this idea of Dalits prevails in society, that they can't contribute anything to the mainstream? So within Dalits also, I am in minority among thought leaders, because Dalit thought leaders are also fighting capitalism. Dalit thought leaders are also fighting capitalism, whereas the rural India is hell for untouchables. It is hell. Even today it is hell. Dalits and intellectuals are also fighting capitalism. Those Dalits who support Dalit caste are dead against capitalism, and more certainly dead against Dalit capitalism. We have an organization called DICCI, Dalit Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. 1 minute, sir. DICCI. We have 3,000 members. Center for the Advanced Study of India, University of Pennsylvania, is profiling 1,000 members. And so far the combined turnover of 1,000 Dalit entrepreneurs is over 150 billion rupees. There is Dalit called Kulwant Singh in northern India who paid 100 crore in taxes last year. There are Dalits with 2,000 crore turnover. But when we say this, that there is some good news, some Dalits are coming up. When Narayan Murthy became a billionaire, he was a hero to the middle class India. Why should not the same happen with Dalits? That if there is a Dalit billionaire, it should be a national icon. But people say, Mr. Prasad, if you say that Dalits have done this, government will abolish affirmative action. And then it generates so much so that what an ideal Dalit should be: dark skin, no class on upper part of the body, working hard under the sun, and sweating hardly. Those waters are diamonds, small diamonds, and the lips broken, pink color. That's the beauty of Dalits. So this is a deeply psychological phenomenon that those who want to help Dalits actually want to destroy them. So it is a phase, I think. It is a phase like a tsunami has taken place or something strange has happened where people cannot think rationally for a decade or so. So where people cannot think rationally, so we are passing through that phase, and hopefully when India actually becomes a capitalistic, then people will remember, and when we face problems of this space in urban India, and then we say that population is one of the big issue we did not touch. But there was a Dalit untouchable in 1951 saying, India, be aware, population explosion is a big danger to this nation. Thank you, sir, for giving me this opportunity.
Good afternoon, friends. I am already feeling like a monkey in Times Square. And you must have noticed that yesterday we had a lecture on Ambedkar on reservations. What struck me today was that Mr. Prasad delivered a lecture for last 20-25 minutes without once uttering the word reservations. So I invite questions from you which will be answered by Mr. Prasad. Yes, please. Just a request. When you stand up, please introduce yourself. Only your name. We don't want a lengthy introduction. Only your name so that we can pointedly answer you. Okay? Yes. Name.
I was little late. I'm Moses Fernandez. In fact, we just came in. Only one question at a time. Sure.
Yes. Only one question.
You can hear me?
Yes, I can. Only one question.
I'm not so used to these mics and all. See, regarding this caste, yesterday also I missed a lecture over here of Dr. Varsha Iyer, because I get involved with too many things on the street. I'm not so used to. Okay, coming to the question. Sorry. I just have one small thing to ask about this very word caste itself. Why don't we get rid of the word caste from the dictionary itself, whether it's Oxford or whichever dictionary? Because if it's a myth, if it's a bouquet, which has been brought down with the trade wallas, I think we can challenge that word caste from the rationalistic point of view, from a scientific temperament point of view. Everybody agrees on that. And yet, I wouldn't go back to yesterday's interactive session and all. We refer to people as Dalits, we refer to people as Tamaz, we refer to people some as Matang and hundreds of other castes. But it becomes so humiliating to even hear those words. For me, I don't know which caste I belong, because I'm just a human. I think the best way to treat all of us together and for togetherness would be just to refer as humans from a humanistic point of view.
Any other question?
We can challenge that word caste itself.
Moses, we will take your question. Your name, please.
Prahlad Shekhawat. I'm a writer and freelance journalist from Jaipur.
Please hold the mic.
Near your mouth.
Yes, I'm Prahlad Shekhawat from Jaipur. I'm a writer, author, and freelance journalist. I also work with the NGO, and I've been to about 200 villages in Rajasthan, different districts, and had separate meetings with Dalits about their voices, inspirations, and how they try to develop projects. Now I want to ask you, sir, Prasad, that reservations allow the poorest Dalits to enable them through education, through employment, so that they can compete at the equal same level playing field, and then become business leaders or capitalists or whatever. And if these reservations are taken away, do you have an alternative model of development for those poorest Dalits? And I've been to Banswara where malnutrition deaths have taken place among the tribals, who are even more poor, the poorest, most deprived of the Indian population. For these people, do you have a model of development to enable them to come to that level playing field and then become capitalists or whatever they want?
Yes. Any other third question? Please introduce yourself.
Augusto Pinto. I'm sure you remember Indira Gandhi's campaign slogan, Garibi Hatao. Now the fact is, Garibi never got hatao, but a lot of Garib got hatao. The poor got, were vanquished in a sense. Many Dalit people are poor. I have a fear that your vision, or maybe Ambedkar's vision, will perhaps destroy caste, but it might also lead to the annihilation of many of those in the bargain. In the bargain, those people who were, their lands will be taken away, whatever little they have got till now will go away, whatever little employment they have will also go away. A few rich will come out of that in the bargain.
Request Mr. Prasad to answer these three questions.
The first question was regarding caste.
Mike.
Sir, if you go to the countryside, you can say caste of a person by the kind of pagadi he is sporting, by the kind of food he is buying. If somebody is buying intestine of a goat, it is Dalit. If some lady is wearing a particular jewelry, she is a Dalit. So, caste, in urban India, caste is known by surname, by announcement, by categorization. In urban India, caste is there in day-to-day lived reality. So even if you remove that caste from dictionary, it is there in society. So unless caste markers go away from life, caste markers mean caste-based food sources, caste-based food, caste-based dress, caste-based jewelry, caste-based cooking utensils and eating plates, caste-based hunting tools, caste-based musical instruments. There is no way to remove caste, sir. Now, your question, I have been saying, sir, that after 3 generations, Dalits should stop using reservation. I have been saying this for past 2 reasons. If educated at DNU, if kids of Chandrabhan Prasad require reservation, that means reservation has failed. Second, those Dalits who are not much exposed to modern knowledge, modern schooling, if people like us ask our kids to stop applying under result pedagogy, the others will get into this system. And at no point of time, jobs for any community will become social leveler. It is only that these people become role models to the society. And once you left farm work, you know, caste is known by occupation, but to Dalits, in the countryside, most of them are farm workers. A leather worker will be only Dalit, but all Dalits will be leather worker is wrong. Only Dalits will rear pigs in North India, but all Dalits are rearing pigs is wrong. So it is basically farm work. So when a family watches that somebody has built a house, big house because he became a government servant, other guys saw that they can't become government servant because they don't have education, they can't afford education, so they come to Bombay, become truck drivers, and go back home and they build their own. So it is more to create role models and create systems of emancipation where things are on autopilot. Sir, your thing, you know, whenever I attend a motivational event, speakers after speaker would come and say, you know, secret to success, first, hard working. I come back and say that no, that is no guarantee. People who are very hard working can never become big. The chapter is very hard working, farm worker is very hard working. You know, hard working people can never become worth sharing chair with you. Focused work. You have a focus, you have a choice of what you are working on. So, sir, a farm laborer, I have seen in my childhood Dalit women going in groups and planting paddy. Rain comes, they get completely wet, and that is the time landlord would come with his umbrella. Ideally, he should be hiding in his house because it is raining. But the rain has come, women are wet. Now go and walk. How are you working? The eyes are somewhere else. So Ambedkar wanted complete mechanization because he saw all any work which is done by naked hands. Humiliation is associated with that. Work done by machines is the greatest social leveler, sir. So we have seen the old order and we have seen Dalits suffering dehumanized in a dehumanized way. Let us experiment with the new order where caste becomes Lal Killa, a Purana Killa. You know, Purana Killa in Delhi, it stands, but it has no value in real life. So caste will not go, it will not disappear immediately. It will be there, but it will have stopped playing any role in real life. So why we are time and again saying scavenging? I have been tweeting and I have been part of the debate. Unless you bring machines, there is no way India can be clean. On a machine, a Brahmin can be a cleaner. Go to top hospitals, private hospitals, and go to hotels. What are the Safai Karmcharis called? Housekeeping staff. We had done a study in 3 shopping malls, and 48% housekeeping staff is made up of upper caste. Because you have removed all those old things and you have a glove, you have a dress, the dignitary is in suit, he is in boot, yes, pant, shirt, there is some bell, there is a cap, and he has sprinklers. He is like anybody. So, all those work, like why did Rahul Gandhi fail in Northern India? Why did not Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Jharkhand, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh gave vote to Congress people? Because Narega mandated that no work under Narega can be done by machines. You have to dig mitti and carry it and throw it somewhere. And one of the most humiliating work in the countryside is considered when you carry mud on your head. So sir, let us see that we have seen this system for past 10,000 years. Let us experiment it for 100 years at least and see if the new system becomes a real tree of emancipation for them.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Your name?
Yeah.
Stop, Jason, you'll be hurt.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Prasad, for your. Sorry, my name is Jason Fernandez. Thank you, Mr. Prasad, for your very productive lecture. I'm going to present you a case from Goa, and I'd like your opinion on it. In Goa, there has been a demand for many years now that the state supports English as a medium of primary education. When this demand is raised, very often the response is that if we allow for English to be a medium of primary education, our children will lose contact with their culture, right? And our culture will be threatened. You have been known to promote English as a method of education. How do you respond to these kinds of challenges to English, where they say you are anti-national and you don't care for our culture if we support English?
Thank you, sir. Forget about other benefits in career when you are good at English. You are good at English, you have the entire world open to you. See how culture and our culture, so-called, and that is how in great conflict they are. In the countryside, when two people meet, they don't say good morning or good afternoon or good evening. If there is a upper caste man, and that is would have to say pranam, pranam, Panditji pranam. When you say pranam, or when you watch a film saying somebody pranam and see the body language of the person who is saying pranam, you have to scale down a bit. The man whom you have said pranam will not say to you pranam. Like when I say to you good morning, you say good morning. When I say pranam Panditji, he said live long, jiyo, bhale raho, acche raho. I will get in return blessing. I cannot be blessing an upper caste. But in English, I say good morning sir, you will also say good morning sir. Here you have an equality. Similarly, when I go to my village, Eastern Uttar Pradesh, Azamgarh, so because some have seen me in television and some have seen me in the writings, they upper caste sons and daughters of my classmates in the childhood, they are more comfortable in calling me uncle than chacha. You know, chacha or kaka you call to the brother of your father. So if it is very rare they would call me chacha, uncle. Uncle is, you know, it is something else. You know, I have not called him I have not given him my father's brother's status. You know. So, in the real day life, every word is spoken by a Dalit, by a non-Dalit, has a very structured system of hierarchy. Reproduces the entire our culture, where somebody is a subject and somebody is a master. English makes it equal. When you say good morning, or when you salute your sipahi in old system, you have to almost fall before the king or before the commander. The new system, you raise your hand. Head is generally up. At good morning, you are at the equal level, while addressing each other. So, at every word is spoken in English is almost about equality. So, those who lost this privilege because of English, because of new culture, because of the man with flowers comes from Europe. What is that they call Love Day in Northern India?
Valentine's.
Valentine's is a bigger revolutionary than Karl Marx. It has made everything equal. Take flower, hold hand, walk together. It cuts, it hits at caste, it hits at culture, it hits at so-called old religion. So that's why there is a, in fact, the conflict between English and vernaculars is not a conflict between two languages. It is a conflict between two cultures. And therefore, Dalits are not alerted, scared, harmed by English and English culture. Those who lost privileges because of the old culture, it is they who are in great pain. Sir.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, but I have a question here. I'll pump you up. Your name, please.
Yeah, my name is Manjeet.
No,
No,
it's not
the
working.
mic.
It's not working.
My name is Manjeet Kripalani and I work for Foreign Policy think tank. Can you tell me a little more about Mayawati from now on? She's a great Dalit icon and she has done a lot with her building of statues to promote the Dalit icons. What do you think she should be doing now that politics in India, or maybe starting on a new path, we don't know. But how can she promote the cause of equality for Dalits, and most importantly for women?
Yeah. That lady that who was standing. Yes. Your question. Your name?
Namaskar. I'm Ramita Gura. Sir, you said regarding English, how English, when it comes to English, we forget about our castes and all everything. But then I connect English to the economic, commercial supremacy all over the world. Tomorrow, maybe after some time, Mandarin will be the language, and then everyone will try to, it will be the language of the internet, it will be the language of their full society will be coming. So that one thing. And secondly, I see so many English educated people who have got PhDs, who are in great posts, but still they can't get away with their caste consciousness. They see your surname and they will ask you, "Aap is jaat ke ho? Aap us jaat ke ho?" So they are where this English study, takes them away from the caste consciousness. Secondly, what I feel is, in our country, we don't have dignity of labor. We don't know to respect that whatever work you do, वो सफाई करने वाला काम हो, or you may be sitting in a big AC office, each work is important. Each work is of equal importance. So the moment you give importance to each and every work, सफाई करने वाला सबसे बड़ा काम है. Since they are doing the साफ सफाई, that's why you can have live in a healthy this year. So what my point is, if we change from the grassroots level in a family, the dignity of labor is put in our this more than the education. Don't you think there will be a change?
Sir, I'm Lalu Mandrekar, I am the Ambedkar activist. I wanted to ask one question. Why the name is required Dalit? When since 5,000 years, since Mohenjo-daro, we are the creator, we are the now Buddha is our, Mahatma Jyoti Savitribai is our, Ambedkar is able to make contribution. So we are the creator, we are doing something great for the, and why we are that? Because that is evaluated word and underestimated way. So why we should not use that word? Other than we can be Ambedkar, we can be other words. So that our shows that underestimated. position.
Are there any other questions?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Shanta Kumar, and I just want to make a quick. Dr. Ambedkar's idea of an egalitarian, eclectic society is extremely laudable. The problem that I'm finding is that all of this stuff about caste is just a culture, is just a euphemism for oppressive religion. Today we are in a political society which is supposed to be going the Hindutva way. I don't see any political statements being made about removing the most fundamental problem with the word Hinduism, which is actually caste, which is a symbol for oppression. And I don't see that coming out from anyone, and all this stuff about culture is all about, oh, it's against our religion. It's nothing to do with culture.
Sir, without caste, Hinduism will lose its strength. Right? It will be there. Hinduism will be there. But without caste, it will stop harming. A Hindu will be very comfortable with the internet and all that. About that is Mayawati, Madam, Mayawati ji has to destroy all her mobile phones which have that buttons. She has to start using smartphones, because new Dalits are using smartphones and their aspirations are new. So if she doesn't make a long jump, she will be swept by the phenomena of irrelevance. Sir, there is a great debate in the US among blacks. Earlier they were called Negroes, they resisted, WB resisted being called Harijans. Then they were called blacks, they resisted. Then they were called African Americans. Now, on their own, black organizations, black people say, Association of Black Pilots, Association of Black Fighter Pilots. Once they have made gains in life, they are reclaiming their black identity. The same way as in Punjab, there are songs, videos, audios, Chamara da Putra. Yes, we are the Chamars. And then they are shown in gym, they are shown driving bullet bikes and all that. So once the community goes up, these things will not make much difference. And people say, I am a Dalit. What do? I have a company that operates commercial flights. So, and the question I think I forgot.
English.
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 Yeah. See, you are saying that some people are good at English and but they still believe in their caste. You know, when you have water body, a glass of water, you start heating it. The entire water body gets heated up, but doesn't change its form unless it touches 100 degrees. Then it turns into So unless a great number of Indians become friend of our flowerland, unless that happens, we have not touched 100 degrees. We have not heated up to 100 degrees. So when large number of people become party to that, it will come down. It will still be there. I am not saying there will be ideal society tomorrow and coming 10 years, but compared to past, we can have a different session. When you measure a Dalit, don't measure a Dalit with rest others today. Measure Dalit with his immediate past. In immediate 20 years back, what he ate, what he dressed, and what is he doing today, then you will get a clearer picture, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chandra.